Ayo, it's me, MTG Jade here for another video. This video is a shout out to my friends that are starting to get into Magic and stuff. I'm going to be talking about the new plane that we'll be going to in September, known as Zendikar. Zendikar is a really cool plane. Every time we go there, there's full art lands. It's just a dope place. Every time it's fun. And I'm just going to give you guys a quick summary of the story. So, okay, I have this whole thing written down. Let me do this. So basically, a long time ago, there were three planeswalkers that needed to defeat the mighty foe known as the Eldrazi. They were Ugin, Sorin, and Nahiri. The enemy they had to defeat was, as I said before, the Eldrazi. Basically, a plane-eating species that lives in between the planes and in between planes, like in the void in between stuff. And there's three of the dudes: Ulamog, Enmakur, and Kozilek. So basically, this planeswalker group, now known as the Three, had a whole plan where they were luring all the dudes onto Nahiri's homeworld, Zendikar, where they then enacted their plan and made it so that they froze all of them in like stone magic stuff so that they wouldn't move. And basically, after that, they all gave each other like a bat signal thing so that if the Eldrazi ever were able to escape, they'd use that whole thing to call out and get help so they can all team up and defeat them again. Basically, then Nahiri ended up putting herself inside the ground for some reason. Not too sure what was the point of that, but she buries herself until the Eldrazi break out. So years later, the Eldrazi break out, Nahiri gets out of her stone, and she uses the bat signal. No one else comes, so she ends up having to fight them all by herself, which is kind of annoying and stuff. And she was pretty upset and stuff. Also during this, there was this planeswalker demon dude known as Ob Nixilis that came to this plane to use its mana to make him human again and no longer a demon. But Nahiri ended up shoving one of the rocks that froze the Eldrazi dudes inside of his head, and it weakened him and took away his planeswalker spark. So basically, Nahiri was really upset that none of them answered the bat signal, so Nahiri went out looking for them. She looked for Ugin, turns out he was dead, which is a good excuse. Then she went to Sorin. She was really upset because also when she woke up from her slumber, there were vampires on the plane, which there weren't there before. She thought it was because of Sorin, but it was actually because of the Eldrazi known as Ulamog, because his whole presence on the plane basically made vampires. So Nahiri was really mad about that. She went to confront Sorin. Sorin's like, hey, I don't want to fight you, but she's like, nah, I'm so mad at you. So he has put her inside of the Hell Vault, which is basically a prison that's like an eternal prison of hell. I don't know how to say it. It kind of sucks. But yeah, he locked her in there. And then basically, and they didn't really have anyone defending. So now we go into the next part, which that was like the whole pretense. Now this is where like the story of original Zendikar took place. Basically, Nicol Bolas has a whole plan to take over the multiverse. He wants to make sure, there's going to be no group of planeswalkers that are going to stop him. So he decides to make a threat that they would need planeswalkers to group up to defeat, or else the whole multiverse is kind of screwed up because these guys just keep eating planes. Which, I mean, I don't get why he would do this, because it just ended up making the thing that he didn't want. But yeah, so he does this. He hires Jace to go find Chandra. He gave Chandra a fire spell and she went around on Zendikar trying to use it. And then Nicol Bolas told Sarkhan to go in the Eye of Ugin and just go there until it's time. And he didn't really give him much descriptions. And he told Sarkhan, I guess, a long time in advance. So basically, Chandra is being chased by Jace. They are getting chased and stuff. They go to the Eye of Ugin. Then you see the Sarkhan's in there, and he went mad because he was by himself, I guess, for a long time. He turned into a dragon, started attacking them and stuff. So Jace and Chandra teamed up. Chandra used the cool fire spell that Nicol Bolas gave her, and then that ended up activating the beginning of the opening of the gate known as the Eye of Ugin's gate. That was like the lock seal making it, because for some reason Ugin, the guy that never wanted these Eldrazi escaping, made a failsafe so they can escape, which required a dragon, 3 planeswalkers, and then the fire spell Chandra used, which kinda doesn't make too much sense why he would make a failsafe, but yeah. So then they basically they start dipping out, but as soon as that happens, Gideon shows up and he's like, "Whoa, where are you guys going?" And they're like, okay, bye," and they left. And Eldrazi started leaking out of the Eye of Ugin, but not any big ones yet. Then came Sorin, who came to defend the plane because he still follows the promise, even though he locked up Nahiri in basically hell jail thing, which sucks. But yeah, he decided to go help it. He teams up with this one person that's not a planeswalker that hasn't had the spark ignited yet, known as Nissa. They team up to try to stop that by closing the gate. When they finally get there, Nissa ends up releasing it fully because she thinks, hey, if I let them go, they're going to go attack some other plane other than my plane in my home. And that ends up not working, and they all start attacking, feeding off, but eventually only one of them stays on the plane, Ulamog. But yeah, after that, Sorin leaves thinking it's a lost cause, and Nissa's Planeswalker Spark ignites after the guilt of, dooming her homeworld and stuff. So yeah, and then there's Gideon that's still there. He keeps fighting and stuff. He kind of gives up and leaves. He ditches out of there because he nearly dies. He realizes he needs friends to team up, so he goes and searches for Jace to try to get team up so he can have like a team to defeat the Eldrazi. Then at some point in between all this, Jace goes back to Zendikar to try to study the whole rock things that turn stuff to stone so he can help his friend that Garuk that's kind of cursed or whatever. So he does this. This Ob Nixilis dude comes up and he's like, "Oh, this rock I have in my head can help." And then Jace takes the rock in the head, involuntarily helping Ob Nixilis and making him not weak anymore. But he still needs this Planeswalker Spark. So yeah, that ends up happening. Then a whole bunch of years later, Gideon comes back to Zendikar with a team he made of Jace and Nissa. Chandra refused the invite, which kind of stinks. But yeah, they go to Zendikar to go defend and stuff. They meet up with another Planeswalker there that is also born on Zendikar, Korra, which she basically is a Morphoke, and she stole a god's weapon. And she's like, "Hey, no worries, guys. I can defeat these guys all by myself. I got this." She goes, summons a giant monster, like a giant octopus with the god trident to fight the Eldrazi. And then she fails completely and planeswalks away out of sadness and shame. Then Jace is like, "Hey, I got a plan," but actually Ugin, who isn't dead anymore for some reason, isn't actually dead anymore because reasons, he ends up telling Jace the plan, but Jace is like not allowed to tell anyone that it's Ugin or something like that. So yeah, he comes up with the plan, and they use the plan to basically refreeze Ulamog, since Ulamog's the only one there currently. Then, while this is happening, Nissa goes to find the Ward Soul, because it's like calling out to her or something. She's all like nature magic and stuff. And basically she finds Ob Nixilis there trying to use the Ward Soul, which is like the soul of Zendikar, the plane. So basically Nissa stops him, and Ulamog's like, I'm not Ulamog, but Ob Nixilis is like, you stink, and leaves. Then basically Nissa goes back and meets up with them. They are able to successfully refreeze Ulamog. But then Ob Nixilis comes out and is like, hey, he breaks the seal, and using the mana from breaking the seal, basically gets his Planeswalker Spark back somehow, and also inadvertently ends up waking up Kozilek, who was, it turns out, didn't leave the plane and was just buried in the center of Zendikar, like underneath it. So that ends up happening. Now they have two Eldrazi. Everything seems screwed over. Ob Nixilis ends up kidnapping the whole team and stuff. They ends up kidnapping them and locking them up and stuff. And at the same time, Chandra's like, hey, you know that invite I refused? Hey, I'm going to come back now. She shows up just in time, saves them from Ob Nixilis. Ob Nixilis is all like, you'll rule the day. And then Planeswalker sparks out because he thinks the world's doomed. Then basically, the whole group, Gideon's like, hey, let's make an oath of the Gatewatch. And then they all make an oath saying they're going to defend like all the multiverse and stuff. And that's when they become the Gatewatch. And then they basically are like, hey, so how are we going to defeat it? And then Chandra's like, hey, why don't we just kill them? And then Jace is like, that doesn't really work because they're outside the plane. And then this is like, hey, why do I just grab them from outside in the void and bring them into Zendikar? And he's like, that sounds like a good idea. But then Ugin tells Jace all like, hey, don't do this. I want to study them. But then Jace is like, shut up. People are going to die if we do that. I just made an oath and stuff, loser. So then they end up up using the plane's mana to pull the Eldrazi from the void into the plane of Zendikar, and then Chandra just catches them all on fire and kills them, burns them alive. So that's basically where Zendikar was left off. The plane, half destroyed by the Eldrazi, and with lots of fire marks. The Gatewatch go up and protecting other planes or whatever, becoming what Nicobolas didn't want, which I still don't get why he did that. But that's basically the story of Zendikar so far. What's exciting about this new set is that it's going to be focusing more on the original Zendikar, which the first two sets of the original Zendikar didn't have the Eldrazi at all. It was all about adventure and exploring this whole new plane. And they're going to be coming back to that whole adventure and exploring of Zendikar, which I'm pretty excited for and stuff. So yeah, hope you found this video useful, and kaboosh!